Well, so what we talk about, obviously, in the meeting, in the official meeting or whatever, it doesn't change from just day-to-day conversation. But what's suggested is that this is it. That's the suggestion. That this is all there is. What seems to be happening is all there is. So there just seems to be bodies sitting on chairs, listening to someone speaking, and there seemed to be a floor, a wall, a room, whatever seems to be happening is just 100% this. So there is nothing else. This is it. This is all there is. And this is not an actual it. It's not a separate thing. It's not an actual object or an actual thing that is something that can be recognized or realized. This is just everything, but it's an energetic freedom, you could say. So it's nothing that becomes something that can be known or can be understood. All there is what's apparently happening. And what's apparently happening is everything, naturally. And it seems to be sitting in a room in Brighton is all there is. And this is boundless energy. Already, it's boundless energy, completely boundless energy. And that's just how everything naturally is. Boundless energy appearing as a body, boundless energy appearing as chairs, boundless energy appearing as a room. This is it. This is that boundless energy, this already. Words, speaking, listening, thinking. That is boundless energy. So that appears as everything, and it's never hiding. It's this. It's not in hiding. It's everything already. Nothing is missing. This is whole and complete. It's perfect, you could say, in its appearance. It's completely saturated with itself. It's whole and complete in how it appears. So nothing is ever lost. There is no path towards this. There is no landing in this. There is no final destination. There is no final realization, because this is just all there is. Already, it's already the case. But what can seem to happen energetically, which is also boundless energy seeming to appear as this, is boundless energy can seem to contract. It can seem to tighten, we could say, and there seems to be this apparent contraction around the body, which usually can sometimes be felt, we could say, in the center line, but this doesn't matter. It just seems to be how the energy constricts around the body, which is also just boundlessness appearing as this tightness. But with this tightness, there seems to be a sense of sitting on this chair then. There seems to be a sense that I am sat here on this chair listening to Izzy speaking, and that I am here, this is me, there is someone in this body, and there is something out there. So when there's a sense of location, energetically, it's not something that's known, it's not something that's recognized or even really thought about consciously. It's just an energetic, lived reality of sitting on this chair right now, that I am sat here right now. And there's nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this, because there's nothing wrong with anything. But the suggestion is that this is a dream, that this is a dream. There is no one sat in this room right now. There is no one already. So there is not even an actual Zoom, not Zoom, I'm so used to saying Zoom, there's not even actual Zoom. There is not even actual real meeting happening. There is not even an actual room in Brighton. It's what seems to be happening, but nothing is actually real in and of itself, nor is it unreal. So it's just pure aliveness, just appearing as this. It's so indescribably alive. And so, yeah, this whole sense of individuality is a dream. It's not happening. There is no one already in the body looking out. There is no one already. It's already the case. And what can just seem to happen energetically, which doesn't happen to an individual, it doesn't happen to anyone, is this can just be recognized, we could say, not by you, not by anyone, not by the individual. It just, we could say it's just by nothing, seems to just resonate with this. And there can just seem to be an openness. And this whole contracted energy, this whole sense of sitting on this chair can just seem to collapse. And there can just be a recognition of this as it. This is it. And you could call it a recognition or a remembering of what always has been. So no one ever actually dies. No one ever actually collapses. The simple recognition, or the simple death, if we want to call it that, is simply the realization that there is nothing to die. There is no one to die, because there is just this already for no one. It's just purely, indescribably, and blindly itself already. Just a room appearing to happen for no one. Yeah.
Like that word remembering.
Yeah, and for me or whatever, it was there was indescribably just like a remembering of. I mean, I say to some people sometimes the closest thing it kind of felt like was remembered was almost childhood, like a taste of what it was like to be a child, because there was almost not a remembering of childhood, of my childhood, but almost that was the last time that this was tasted, in a sense. This sort of freedom, this energetic aliveness just seemed to be more alive in childhood. Everything seemed to be more alive. So it was an energetic remembering by no one of what always was. It never went away. The coming home, if you like. It's resonating. No, it's beautifully indescribable, but it is. I think I've heard Jim say sometimes, and I know it's a bit misleading because it's like everyone knows this, because it implies that there is someone who knows it. But everybody, let's say, everybody knows. I mean, for clumsy language, but there's always a resonance somewhere in the system with what's being said, because each organism remembers what this aliveness is like, because the organism is this aliveness. So it's just rippling with itself in a way. Yeah.
Then life and death, as it's usually known, is sort of irrelevant, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, because there is no death. It doesn't happen. This is death, we could say, in that way. So this body will seem to, if it has a long life, grow old and die. But nothing happens. There's no one in it that dies. And there's no recognition of an actual death happening, because death never actually happens, but the one who died is no longer there. So when this seemed to be unfolding here, there was a real feeling that I was dying, and there was almost a sense of this is what death is like. So it's sort of done in that sense then. There's no other death that's going to happen. Oh, yeah. Completed it.
Somehow you happen to be born.
Ticked it off, yeah. Well, apparently, yeah, apparently. Of course, we just talk about it in life, like life and death. I'll just say, yeah, I'll die one day. Doesn't mean there's someone in there who's having an experience of dying. That's the difference. It feels more real than that for the individual, in that it's not sort of like an ego death, or that would sort of be like just to me that sort of feels like something dies just in the mind, kind of thing. That's what I think of as a psychological death. But this is more, because when you feel like an individual, it's not just a psychological thing. It seems to have an effect on the psyche, but when you feel like an individual, it's an energetic thing. It's an energetic lived sense of sitting on the chair. So if it was psychological, then that would just collapse, and then there'd perhaps be something that felt like it was then living, but without me or without the ego. So what really seems to collapse is the whole lived sense of me. And then the psychological stuff just seems to, there just seems to be a side effect of sort of the psyche kind of recalibrating to that. But it's energetic more than psychological.
Not having a center or a mind. Does this mean that even this contraction makes the body seem real and separate and physical? So it's not just things that you're trying to describe something that is essentially formless. I'm not sure if that.
This is naturally formless, yeah.
And it's this contraction that makes it seem real and separate.
That's it, really. Yeah. This apparent contraction, it never actually happens, but it just makes this feel solid and real and like it's actually happening and that I am real in here. That's all it is. It's just an energetic contraction that never actually happens. So this is already formless. It's already the case. But something seems to hold in the body, apparently, never actually, that makes it feel that it's a form.
I always remember people talking about no me, and it seems as though the body in its form, it was just empty inside thought or emotion. I always thought, because I was in teaching, things like meditation and other stuff. I always seem to think like it would have like an absence inside, but no, it doesn't.
Well, there is an absence. The thing is, it is the ultimate absence, but there's not really an absence inside because there's not an inside or outside. We could also, the same thing as saying is there is an absence inside and there's an absence outside. So the sort of meaning of absence loses its kind of, it doesn't really hold up because this everything is the ultimate absence, you could say, which is the same thing as saying everything is just naturally empty. But simultaneously, by being completely and utterly empty, it's completely and utterly full as well. But thought seems to happen, emotion seems to happen. That just seems to be a natural mechanism of the human body. But there's no one in there, there's no one in here, there's no one in there having a thought, having an emotion, having a feeling. It's just happening.
Part of the system.
Exactly, and it's meaningless. Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of these teachings are like, don't think, don't have thoughts. It's good. It's sort of pure to be without thoughts, or to sort of have no repressed emotions, to only have good emotions, or to be in control of one's emotions, or be aware of one's emotions. That's just, A, it's impossible because there's no one who can do that. But B, it's also just meaningless. It doesn't matter if there's thoughts or emotion or whatever. It's just what seems to happen. They're not a problem.
When I was coming up from the shops this morning, I asked how his wife was. But not really. I have a close friend that's not well at the moment. And the thought that goes through my mind is that these people are getting older. So, and I'm just curious as to whether that idea of age is when that remembering takes place. Is it just the character that thinks about age, or is age then irrelevant? Age is just irrelevant.
Well, it's apparent in that it's what apparently happens, but there's no sense. So, for example, here, there's no sense of I am 23, or I'm going to be turning 24. Like, there just seems to be an age that's apparently happening and a body that apparently looks in the mirror and gets older. But there's no there's nothing more than that that's added to it. There's no greater significance. It doesn't mean anything more. And really, we could say that for the person, age can become the path towards death. So when you feel like an individual on the path towards death, and a lot of this isn't conscious, but age really then is time. So age is the sense of time, the sense of aging in time, of getting older. So here, there's no sense of getting older.
And in terms of others,
same thing.
These two people I'm talking about, aware of at the moment, is that sense of time no longer exists.
No.
It's just person.
Totally, yeah.
Just person.
It's just, and of course, there may be, like anxiety and compassion towards someone who's diagnosed with something or aging, but there's no sense of them getting older because there's no sense of them. There's no other.
What is happening?
Exactly. It's not even that there's any way to sort of relate to them. It's just that the relationship collapses. So there is no other.
There is no other.
Yeah. There's not even someone else. There's just what's apparently happening, an apparent friend or whatever.
And this person might be ill at the moment.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Exactly.
And it's not to do with age, it's just what's happening.
Well, it may apparently be to do with old age and illness that comes in old age, but there's not an extra layer to it than that. And there's not a real sense of that being an actual story. Like there's nothing inside that registers, oh, that's happening because of old age, or it being a real problem.
There's time involved and they'll die.
Exactly. And really that time's ticking. As in sort of, oh gosh, it's only a matter of time before they pass away, which may be the case apparently, but there's no lived sense of that. That's the difference. So the body just seems to live day to day, but it doesn't carry with it this lived sense. There may be a fleeting sort of, oh, I'm going to call that friend because I'm concerned about them. They've just been ill. But it's not something that is carried with the body anymore because it doesn't hold.
You don't hold it on behalf of another person.
Exactly. It just might come up and then it just, they might just be then calling the friend, having a nice chat, and then maybe the next day the same thing. It might be an ongoing sort of thing, but it's not something that, because there's no one in there to hold on to it as a problem for that person.
The other person.
For me and for them, because me and them collapses. Really, it's not actually me's concern with them is never actually with them. It's always with me, because by seeing them, I see me. But there is no me in them. So then there's just what's apparently happening.
So with the me, it's sort of like what you're saying is that not well. Your concern about them is in relation to the fact that you've got the energy about them.
Well, you could just say that it's all a mirror in the sense that me sees itself in everything. Because there is no one, so there is no other, there is no actual other that is getting old, but the individual sees itself in everything and everyone. It's constantly projecting itself onto everyone. So yes, there may of course be genuine concern for the other or whatever, but when there seems to be a sense of individuality, me can only ever see me in relationship to them. So that doesn't matter, but it just constantly sees us as having a relationship and that being a real thing.
And there isn't a relationship.
No. Exactly. Yeah. Do you remember that word? A year or so ago. Yeah. I think it was at Andreas's meeting, wasn't it? There was people were getting really uptight about the word, apparently. Sort of everyone was looking up didn't you look it up in the dictionary or something?
Yeah, I thought, I've got an interesting language, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it can mean different things.
That's quite funny. Mm. Yeah, but I was just going to say, in a wonderful way, there's almost, because I suppose the way it's being said, I think the individual almost can interpret that as like a lack of empathy or compassion, but in a funny way and in an indescribable way, that there is no relationship is the most intimate thing possible. It's the ultimate intimacy, because there's not me and you. There's just this. So in a way, everything is amplified, you could say. Not for anyone, but the concern, like this before, like I would never, you know, didn't really cry at things. You know, there's a lot sort of suppressed inside. Whereas now there's no one holding that in. So it just sort of happens. So if there is an illness in a friend, there's like 100% full on emotion and feeling of what's happening. Pure compassion. Yeah, pure compassion. Because it's not compassion even for them or from me. It's just compassion. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I used the word immediacy on someone that was in therapy. They were talking about some expert. I just threw into it the word immediacy. Client, therapist client. The immediacy of just there being no knowing, just that's pure compassion. With somebody pure compassion. But the amount of comments it made on this Zoom group can't take it, can they?
What negative comments? Or?
Well, sort of like just capture.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Capture. What I was saying actually. I mean, I'm only talking about articulating.
Yeah, for some people, there's just doesn't click. You could say there's just not a resonance.
Not a resonance. There was
no resonance. Went down like a lead balloon. It's funny. It's amazing. I was having the chat with someone the other day, actually, how it's very unpredictable as well. You know, someone could be very spiritual and very, or very, you know, very sort of laid back and, you know, real sort of hippie, and you think they'd be so into this, and then perhaps there's just gonna be a complete rejection of it, and yet someone else who you may think is like, I don't know, like 9 to 5 corporate job. It's like no, they won't, and they're just a total openness to it.
Just get
it. It doesn't. It's really, there's no discrimination. It doesn't matter, you know, what that body seems to do or who it seems to be, because it's not to do with that. It's something else.
I think, of course, a part of it is a lot of these people are maybe doing the end of their work.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's threatening. Exactly. Yeah, it's a massive threat. That's why there can seem to be a massive rejection from this, because if there is no one, then what do I do? Who am I? yeah. It's the end of your
experts on this. We're trained for so many years.
Yeah, it's wonderful though, because it's a return to that sort of childlike innocence.
And sort of not knowing it, as you say, is sort of like
exactly, because it's just what's happening, and everything is fresh and new, and it's just seen not by anyone, but it's seen as it is, but not by anyone. Whereas when there's an expert or you know, the individual with all this knowledge, there's the whole ideas of what it is comes into it, and it isn't.
You could go on ad infinitum about ideas.
Oh gosh, yeah. And yet, actually, that body is not actually just seeing the body in front of it as what's happening. It's seeing it as all of the ideas and knowledge it seems to bring to the table. Yeah. Because without the ideas and all the stories, there is no problem. There is just two bodies sitting on a chair. And of course, a lot of therapy resolves around there being a problem to solve. Exactly. Or they have a problem and they need to help. You need to listen to help them solve it. And so when it's just two bodies sitting in a room, where's the problem? There isn't one. So then there's nothing to talk about in a therapeutic way.
That's what Tim says, he can't do it.
What, therapy?
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, did he? Yeah. No, it would be impossible because this just couldn't give any advice because it doesn't see a problem. Even if someone says, "Oh, I'm really," there may be a response, a compassionate response, or maybe, you know, oh, maybe you should go and see the doctor, or maybe do that, or what. Like maybe going to therapy happens, but the point is, there's no actual thing that's being solved. Whereas therapy centers around that sort of getting your teeth stuck into the problem and getting to the heart of the issue. But at the heart of the issue, there isn't an issue. So,
after all that training.
I know. And you finally discover the heart, and there's nothing there. Yeah. I mean, different personalities, and depending on the conditioning, will obviously take that in a different way. For some people, it might be wonderfully hilarious, like that's just brilliant. Whereas for others, it can be really confronting and
So
really.
I'm sure I'm curious to the next.
Yeah, I love that. Oh gosh, very brave of you in a way, because you know, yeah, it can get a lot of people don't like it. People don't like it, especially in professional circles.
Well, I didn't use the word non-duality. I just
But that's probably enough to ruffle the feathers, let's say. Oh, yeah. There's nothing wrong with therapy in any of that, but it's trying to solve something that actually isn't there. There is no issue, really.
but the constricted energy that Daniel's
Mm.
that's not there either.
No. Well, it seems to feel as if it is,
Yeah.
but that's just boundlessness appearing as that. There is no separate contracted energy that sort of there's boundlessness, because for the person that is that contraction, it would then feel as if there's a contraction and then there's boundlessness. But what it will never be able to recognize is that the apparent contraction is boundlessness appearing as that. So that's why it's said that nothing ever happens, because when the apparent contraction dissolves, it dissolves back into boundlessness. But the dissolving is just the recognition that it is boundlessness. So it's just boundlessness into boundlessness. So nothing happens, nothing moves, because there can't be a movement from boundlessness to boundlessness, because it just is that already.
There's no center, no boundaries.
Exactly, yeah.
What people call the infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Called what?
The infinite.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that's this. It's not hiding. It's not anywhere else. It's this. Literally this. This is the infinite.
Even this doesn't capture it,
Nothing does. No.
does it?
This is an attempt to describe this.
Apparently.
Exactly.
There isn't even an apparently.
No. There's nothing. At the end of it, at the end of the day, there is nothing. There's no word that could touch this. It's wordless.
It's wordless.
So this is just a desperate attempt to just, you can't describe it. It's intangible.
And
It's
nothing is appearing.
not actually. Apparently this conversation is apparently happening. It seems to be happening. It's not actually appearing. It's not actually happening. Nothing is actually happening. No, nothing ever happens. Yeah, the whole so-called life, all the efforts, all the whatever, nothing ever happens. That's the freedom, you could say. can be, but also it can seem to really trigger this sort of, no, it's not, it's something is happening sort of thing. So it can either seem to have, it doesn't matter the sort of effect it seems to have on the body, but there can seem to be an openness to this, where even just in the meetings, that sense of individuality can just not be there. Or there can seem to be a real sort of fight against what's being said. It doesn't matter. In the end of the day, it's not about relaxation or stress. It's about the fact that there is no one in the body experiencing either. And when that apparent sense of individuality collapses, the body does seem to relax. And I spoke about this quite a lot in my meetings, how it seems to gradually purge itself of all of the stress and the emotion that it's built up and the trauma and whatever. But that's not a cause and effect. It's not like liberation causes that to happen. It's just that as a result of there being no one in the body is kind of finally able to just be, really. In a sense, yeah, the recognition of there being no one. I was chatting to someone the other day and we were saying how it's almost like the body's sort of, this feels as if there's something in there, and this seems to create this sort of container. So everything is contained in the body then. It's all held in. All the trauma from childhood, all the, stress and everything is just held in the body. And then when it's recognized by no one that there's no one in there, it's almost like it's just recognized that there are no walls up. So it's no walls up. So the wall or the container, there's no container. So it's not even that the container falls away. It's that the illusory container falls away. But it's just recognized there is no container. And then the body just crying, laughing, whatever seems to happen. The energy just seems to pour out of the body. Yeah, but more from a point of this energy coming out of the body. It just seems to come out in whatever way. Tingling. It's just a report of what seems to have been happening here. But it depends on the body and how much trauma there's been and how much emotional stress or whatever. Yeah. So it's not a benefit though, because there's no one benefiting from it. That's the problem. Sounds wonderful for the person, like a really relaxed body with no trauma and nothing inside it. But there's no one here benefiting from it. So
after all that, there's no
exactly. Yeah. It's a lose-lose situation for the person. Because it's a lose-lose for the person. Because what it most longs for, it can never have. What it most longs for already is, but without me to sort of experience it.
Seems to be. Really heard you say, well, so many other people I don't understand what everything I do is based on choice. As in, think about something. Well, not everything. Certain sort of things seem to be determined by choice. If that is true or not, even to hear a thought about it, organised and planned it. I'm kind of confused whether that is a choice or things just unfold. There is no choice or there is no free will. I find it quite difficult to comprehend because it appears here that there is making some decisions in my life to do certain things, to eat certain things in the supermarket between two things. I'm not sure what your experience of that. Is it true or is choice real or is it not?
Well, it's the collapse of the experience. That's the thing. So there's no one who experiences choice or no choice. There's just no experience, which is why it's often said that there is no choice, because there is no choice really. Because everything already does unfold as it does already, even with the apparent sense that I have choice. what should I eat, what should I get, da da da. That seems to feel like I am in there grappling. I mean, when you feel like an individual, internally there always sort of feels as if there's like a discussion going on. What should I get? Should I get this? Should I get? Oh no, maybe I'll get. Da, 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 da. It's like a back and forth, and this is just pure duality. Really, this isn't actually happening. There is no two inside. There's not even one inside. So choices just seem to happen, but there's no chooser. So how far you would call that a choice? It really isn't a choice. Because the thing is, there's no internal dialogue going on anymore. There's no internal discussion, because choice really is always between at least one of two things, basically. And so there has to then be someone in there. Which should I do? What should I do? And the thing is that things just happen. There's no one who's making a decision. It just is total, boundlessly, free-falling, spontaneously happening. There's no chance to even pause and make a decision in the way that the individual feels there is. Because for the individual, because it feels it's living in time, life is on some sort of spectrum, linear sort of spectrum of the past, the future, and now. And so it kind of feels that it can rewind, fast forward, and pause, and that it can pause time. What should I do? And then, or it's really looking forward to the next thing, or whatever. It's just this experience of time. And so when that collapses, there's just what's happening. There's no one choosing to do anything. You could say there's apparent choices that the body just makes, and that may just be dependent on the conditioning and the character. So, oh, should I eat this or that, or should I go and watch this, or should I watch the tennis or the cricket or whatever? Like, this would just maybe choose the cricket, but there's no one in there who knows what to choose or what it wants or what it likes. It just seems to happen.
Play cricket, but if you're in another part of the world, you may not play cricket.
Yeah.
So localized.
Yeah, you could just say conditioning. Also, each body, each character seems to have a flavour for that character. Just seems to be an essence of that so-called person. Just seems to have a flavour to them. But there's no one in there doing that or experiencing it. So yeah, of course it's to do with conditioning as well. I grew up in a really sporty family, so that's going to kind of that's what I grew up doing. But then there's also just seems to be an essence of the character's just nature. Some people are really chatty, some people are really quiet, some people like reading, some people like walking, whatever it is. It just happens. There's just natural preferences. But there's no one inside like, oh, what is it that I like? Who am I? What kind of things do I enjoy? It just happens. There's some free time, whatever just happens.
The dialogue is a separate self.
It appears that way, but it never actually happens. That doesn't ever actually happen. But I know it feels like that when it feels like there's an individual. It feels as if there's something inside and it's having a conversation, and people get really caught up on which is the real me, because it feels as if there's two things in there. And, yeah, and then they're like, am I the awareness of it, or am I? And it's really all this confusing thing inside. But the reality is that none of that ever happens. There's no internal. There is no inner anything. Thoughts appear to happen, but there's no one who's listening to them or registering them. And they don't actually exist.
What do you mean by no experience? Based on something that's known?
What the experience is known.
Yeah.
You mean?
You said experience, you said there's an absence of experience or something like that.
Yeah, it's that there's no experience of this happening right now. And that's to the one who feels it's experiencing it. You can't imagine that. No one can. Because me lives in experience, and it can only imagine another experience. So it can only imagine liberation as being another experience. It really can as many concepts where it tries to get around this, it can only feel that Izzy is having an experience, a different experience, or an enlightened experience, or a liberated experience that I need to get to. But what's really being said is this is the collapse of experience. There is no one here and no one there having an experience already.
after listening to you and these other people, these are experiences
Oh yeah.
that they're teaching.
States, yeah.
Yeah, they are like drugs,
Mm,
but without
mm,
the drugs.
oh
That's
god,
the only
yeah.
way I can describe them, because you do feel like pretty almost high, but without taking a drug. It's very strange.
What, these sort of meditative experiences?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I used to visit lots of monasteries, and I would chat to lots of people there who would get into these sort of states with jhanas and states of ecstasy, and they would say exactly like you just said. He was like, oh, "It's really cool. Yeah, it's basically like being on ecstasy, but without the drug, kind of thing." And so, of course, that's very attractive for the person. It wants to have that sort of experience of the drugless drug. But the point is, it may happen, apparently happen, or feel that it happens, and this state of ecstasy may be reported, but it's as meaningless as anything else. And really, what's being said is there's no one in there experiencing anything at all. So this includes everything. It's not about a particular state. Liberation is not a particular state or a particular experience, because that would be bound to something.
So just say practicing, kind of get into the habit of practicing character. I like doing it. But it's not a choice. It's just happening.
Already, yeah.
It's already happening. No choice. It's just happening. So tomorrow morning, I say I've got practice yoga at 7. That would be just what's happening. There would be a degree of planning to do that.
Perhaps, yeah, but what we're really talking about is that there's already no one in there. There's no sense of doing that. So there may have been planning to bring my phone and my water bottle today, but there's no sense of an individual being in there having to gather everything together internally. So, what time should I do yoga? And there's also no, yoga may happen or it may not, but there's no sense of the future. The future can't be tasted, it can't be known. So it may just appear as a thought of, I'll do yoga tomorrow morning, but there's no holding on to that. There's no waiting for yoga tomorrow morning, because there's no, for the person, it's sort of this path of time where it plans things out, and there's a sort of real feeling of those things are going to happen, and it can sort of, that energy is just constantly sort of waiting and moving towards that. Exactly. So yoga may happen tomorrow, and there may be something in the diary for yoga to happen at 7, but now, so to speak, yoga's not happening. It doesn't exist. Just this. So there's no room for anything else. There's no room for yoga at 7 here. But yoga at 7 tomorrow will just be what's happening, and then there's no room for this in the past. So it's just full on whatever's happening. Whereas the person sort of lives in the abstract world of time, where everything is sort of, the abstract is very real, in that yoga tomorrow morning is real. Oh no, it has to happen if it's in there. Well, that doesn't matter, you know. As you say, it just depends on the character. But the point is that this is so boundlessly alive as this, that there may just be a plan to do that tomorrow, but it's not held anywhere. It's not held in the system anymore as an event that's going to happen.
And every event seems to be personalised as well, as good or bad, or really good. Some sort of emotional attachment to how good or bad it was.
Oh yeah, everything is labelled, everything is good or bad. Everything is, organised, it has an opinion. And that's fine, it doesn't matter, it's not wrong. But it's just that this is not good or bad. It's just what's happening. And good and bad becomes a problem for the person, because it then wants to get the good and avoid the bad.
Principle. Why is it trying to avoid the bad? There is no like preference. Things just happen.
Yeah, but when you feel like an individual, you want to feel good. Just how it seems to work. No one wants to feel bad in that way, because when I feel bad, it feels like the end of the world for me, because it feels very personal. And so me wants to feel good all the time. I mean, I say that, but it doesn't really know what it wants at the end of the day. But most people seem to chase things like happiness or peace. But really, what is being longed for is the end of me. So it's not actually longing for just the good. It wants the end of good and bad. That's what it longs for. It longs for the neutrality that is this, where things don't have to be good and bad in that way. But in the path to do that, it's common that people try and seek the good. But saying that, it also can seem to happen where people seek the bad. But really, it doesn't matter. It's just this seeking energy, seeking something.
There's no death. No time. Death is based on time.
Yeah, the sense that there's going to be a real death is the sense that there is a real future, which there isn't.
The death within the story is always in the future. It's never.
Exactly. Because if it was now, where am I? I would be dead. It's very confronting that this is death. So that energy, it just, for no reason at all, death seems to always be in the future as a rejection of the death that is this. Because there is no one in this which you could call a death. But it's sort of a comfort for the person that death is in the future, because then I'm alive now and then I will die. But it's sort of a catch-22, because it's a comfort because at least I'm still alive. But then what about when I die? So there's sort of an anxiety. There's no choice in that. It just seems to be how that energy works. It's constantly longing for its own death, but also constantly avoiding it. It can't bring about its own end because it doesn't begin.
Yeah, because that would indicate time again.
Well, to say it can't bring about its own end implies that there is something there that can end or not end. But there isn't. There is no individual. There is no time. There is no beginning or end, which is, there is no time.
So, consciously, that it seems like I've come here for something. I don't know what, but it appears that I've another experience. It seems as though I've come here, but that was false, really. But it seems as though I have. I always go to these events hoping that something will happen.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, what these events are saying is that nothing's going to happen. I mean, that's what every so-called seeker and individual does. It's not, it's not just you. It's how that energy works. The seeker comes to the meetings hoping that something's going to happen.
And that's the definition of it.
It's just you can't. No one can help it. You can't help it. It's just what you are. It's what the individual is. But it's the complete antithesis of what is being said. And so it's never heard by that thing that wants something to happen, never hears this. But what seems to hear it, we could say, is something else, which is everything. So it will never be heard by that need of something to happen, because it needs something to happen. But what can seem to happen is it can suddenly be heard that nothing has to happen or is going to happen. And that need can just collapse.
And that even makes it sound like it's something beyond what is.
It does, yeah, because that's the only way that the person can hear it. Because the person hears it as that there is something seeking, and then there is something that is, and that it will never be heard by me, but it will be heard by something else. But in reality, the something else is nothing, and the me is never happening. So actually, the nothing is all there is. Me never happens. So for me, it feels like there's me and there's boundlessness, but actually there's just boundlessness. Me never happens. So it's the other way around. But the person feels I am the center of the universe, and that there must then be this and that. But actually there's just that. There's never this individuality. Yeah, I mean, this just stops the seeker completely in its tracks in that way, because it's just what you said is just totally at the essence of the so-called seeker. It comes here hoping and really feeling that something is going to happen. And what the message is saying is that nothing is going to happen. And that can just suddenly, it just hits the wall. It can't get beyond that. Nothing's going to happen. Can't. It's trying, and that energy keeps trying until maybe it just collapses. It never gets anywhere. Exactly. Nothing happening is this. It's just pure aliveness. Yeah. And it never actually happened. So, I mean, in a funny way, it's not just a waste of a journey because there's less people, you know, in that way. It's a complete waste of a journey in the sense that nothing ever happened. But that's the freedom. It's not a waste for anyone. So it's not even a waste then. That's the love and the freedom, that traveling just seems to happen, talking seems to happen, but nothing is needed in any of it. For it to be a waste, it would have to be like, oh, I was hoping something would happen and it didn't. But that hope just collapses. So
when Manchester in a few months' time, National Rail will be nationalised. So nothing happening but we are National Rail.
Apparently. Who knows if it will be a better or worse so-called experience.
What?
Once I've got a train.
Yeah. But yeah, after every single meeting that the seeker goes to, it always leaves empty-handed. No one ever leaves with anything. So that's the wonderful thing about these meetings. They don't offer anything. So no one ever leaves with that, oh, I really got something from that. No. And that's what it's suggesting. That's what the meeting is about, so to speak. So all of those meetings that have been gone to, there's never been any progress made because there is no path. So,
appeared that I was making some sort of progress.
Oh yeah, yeah, it can seem that way.
Like feelings and other stuff, I seem to change. And then I came to Tony. And then I just stopped going.
Yeah.
I shared a room with someone on a retreat. The strange thing has happened recently because a lot of meditation and stuff, and it's just kind of a bit as much anymore. I just used to be way more disciplined. It's like I just give up on things because it just seemed to thought I was getting something back from them.
Exactly, yeah. It's not a choice, but what can just seem to happen is the energy can just fizzle out of things. So whereas before there might have been a real energy and motivation to meditate because it really felt, not even conscious, but it just felt, I should do this, something good is going to come of it. Again, that's not like articulated necessarily, but it's just a sense. And yeah, the energy can just drop out of those things. So they just don't seem to happen as much. There's no motivation to do it anymore.
No, especially with things I would consider spiritual. Since coming to this message, what goes.
Oh yeah, because this is not spiritual. This is not spirituality. So, and there is no such thing as spirituality, really. So it blows up all those sort of practices because all those practices ultimately are part of a path towards enlightenment, usually, or whatever it is. Yeah. Collapse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems as though I was wanting a reward from God
Oh
for being a
yeah.
good person, looking deeper into it.
But that's how the person interacts with life. It feels that if I'm good, I will get something back. Yeah, it's just not the case. It's not even that it's not true. It's just that there is no me that can be good and get something in return. This individual doesn't exist.
So binary.
For the person it is, yeah. Good, bad, here, there, not this.
Why does that happen then, this sort of interest?
Well, because for the person, a lot of its activities, not all of its things, but a lot of its interests and activities and a lot of the way it seems to spend its time, apparent time, seems to be on the path. Yeah, it feels as if it's on the path. So a lot of what it seems to do day to day, it fills its day with activities or things that it feels are going to get to the reward. Whether it's a job, a specific job, a relationship, a finance or whatever it sort of is, or if it's more just sort of interests in day-to-day activities, it's constantly feeling as if it's moving towards something. And so what can seem to happen is when the end goal collapses and it's just recognized there is no thing that is being moved towards, then a lot of those things can just fizzle out. But it's sort of, in a way, it kind of exposes what the character's true interests are in a funny way, because things are just done, at least here it seems to be that the only things that seem to really happen are where there's real love for something. So playing sport or going on a walk or being with my dog or whatever, being with my family, like where there's just natural love that the character just loves doing that. There's no possibility of forcing things anymore, because for the person there's so many things it feels it should be doing. I should do this, I should look like this, I should behave like this. And so it's all part of this path towards doing these shoulds so that it feels it will get some sort of reward. And so when that whole dynamic collapses, there's no energy to do things that it felt it had to do anymore, because nothing has to be done in that way.
Are they like false desires?
In a sense, yeah. Exactly. And so people often say, I mean, a lot of people say they just have no motivation to go to work after hearing this, or if this seems to collapse. But the thing is, in my opinion, or whatever, if that job, for example, seemed to be actually a genuine love, it didn't seem to be part of a path, then it may just carry on. But the thing for the person is, a lot of things in its life, nearly all the things in its life, are often part of the path. But so-called individuals, there seems to also just be true passion for things. Maybe there's just a true passion for painting, and those sorts of things would probably continue because they're already often naturally needless, which is why someone can actually enjoy them so much, because they're often just free. Whereas someone might be forcing themselves to do a certain thing that they feel, like meditate every single day for 3 hours or whatever, because they feel it will get them something, when it's just clear that there's nothing coming out of it. If that body really loves meditating, maybe it would just carry on. But if it doesn't, I mean, a lot of the times I think with those sorts of things, the individual is doing it because they feel it's a good thing to do and something will come of it. So when there's no reason to meditate anymore, often it just sort of collapses.
I went on a course recently, dedicated on a management.
Oh, nice title. Nice title.
And so it was 3 consecutive Fridays. First time I went, about 10 people there. Got us into twos for the diet, 5 diets. So, 2.5 minutes to answer a question. First diet, the question was, then you turned it around. So the question was, who are you? This lovely woman, this lovely woman sitting opposite me, delightful woman, she started to tell me who she was. And actually, after 2.5 minutes, I was fucking.
Long time to tell someone who you are.
Oh God, I know, yeah. But then people can go on with the stories.
The next woman, the next diet was an equally lovely woman. The question there was, how would you like to be remembered? And after 2.5 minutes, it really brought home to me that our whole life is like a story.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It really brought it home to me. So really into it. I'm not saying I was any different, but it's wonderful understanding of that our life. Oh.
But it's such a contrast, I think, energetically, that sort of story and heavy sort of who I am and who are you. Energetically, it's contrast to just this. Isn't it? Just this. It's such a seemingly harsh seeking energy that seems to just come up against nothing, the boundlessness. So when there's maybe been a glimpse or a taste of this, then there's just that sort of story mode again. It can be very obvious in a way, very sort of exposing of just how blindfolded the individual is in its sort of stories in that way. It's not a problem, but it's just, yeah, it's completely entranced by its story.
So the intention of this exercise was to come up with a few words. let's. They said, well, that's the start. I said, I thought that was the end.
Short and sweet. It's nice. Yeah,
but
that's funny.
Take anything seriously.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, for sure. And there can be a real. It's almost, there can be, people say to me, there can be a sense of they're just making it up. Because in a way, there's no one making it up. There's no one deliberately making it up and fabricating things. But it's a made-up story. It's not real. So the fragility and the just the unrealness of it can be so obvious, and it's so then just not serious because it's not even happening. But for the individual, it's so dramatic. It's so real and serious and heavy. Mm.
But the second word, what about you? By this time I was exhausted. How would you like to remember? What about the others?
Oh, yeah. They probably wanted you. Can you elaborate on that? Still got 2 minutes 20 seconds here, Brendan. She's just sitting there nodding, like, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's very humorous. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that's funny, but there seems to be a lot of humor with this message. It's just very light compared to that sort. Totally alive. Yeah.
Whatever is happening is alive.
Exactly.
Sadness is grief, it's alive.
Full on alive, yeah. Yeah. It's like with children, everything comes to life. You know, children play with their teddies and play with their little tea sets, and everything's real. Everything's sort of, in a funny way, everything's, you know, we use these words real and unreal, but when I say real in that way, I mean it's all alive. It's full of life. Everything comes to life. Yeah. Children have these sort of, you know, imaginary best friends, or they have, you know, everything is so alive in the child's world. No. And children find they just find, not that this is like becoming a child again, but this childlike sense of just, you know, the ordinary is the extraordinary. So children don't need this sort of, like, yes, as they grow up, obviously, but there's just playing in the sand or playing in the garden, looking at the worms or whatever. It's just so simple. Doesn't need to be grand or elaborate or anything. It is, yeah. It's so stunning, the ordinariness of it. That is what's stunning. It's just a table and a chair. It's just so ordinary. Just fully, that is alive. Yeah.
I suppose dead in that sense is when there's no bottom on the body.
Well, really, actually, the individual lives in a dead world, actually. The ironic thing is that for the individual, everything is kind of dead. It's not alive. Because for the person, it lives in a world where it thinks it knows things and it feels that it relates to things. So there's me in here and there's the chair over there. And in a way, that kills the aliveness. By having a relationship, it kills the aliveness in a way. It's an illusion, but it seems to feel that way. So in terms of, for the individual, life is a sort of deadness. It's not alive for the person. For the individual, life is a sort of deadness. There's a sort of flatness, a deadness to it, because everything feels known. It's for the individual, life is not alive. It's actually dead. That's how it feels. Because it feels that there are things and it knows what these things are, and there's a relationship too.
Dead, really.
It kind of seems to kill the aliveness of what is. because
so the aliveness is always there, apart from when the body
drops off. Well, the body seems to die, but nothing happens. No one dies. And we can't even, the thing is, for the person, it would feel that the end of the body would be the end of experience. But there's no experience to end. So you can't even say that, okay, yeah, there's things that seem to happen, and then there's nothing that seems to happen anymore. But there's no one who could register that as being some sort of difference, because no one's registering this as an actual happening. So the thing is, for the person, it's sort of like death is kind of like, okay, this is very colourful, there's lots of things here. What's death? Just like a black void, like just nothing. But the thing is that this is nothing. So this apparent colourful aliveness is nothing. So this is death in that way. And there's no one who knows.
Is death in that way.
In every way, yeah. This aliveness is death.
Say more about that.
I don't know if I can though.
The person is dead.
There is no one. There is no person. So we're really entertaining stories here in that way. But for the person, this is sort of, it feels that I'm here, and by feeling that I'm here, it just sort of kills it in some way. And it doesn't know how it does, because it doesn't know the alternative. It will never know that. But for some reason, just knowing it and being here just seems to, life seems to happen through a filter of me. So there seems to be me talking, me listening, me looking at the room. And this seems to kill life, this filter, in a way. So when it's just recognized that actually already there is no filter, it's not even that the filter collapses, it's just seen that already it's just no filter. No filter.
Yeah.
Then it's just pure aliveness. Pure aliveness, which is indescribable how that actually is.
I just misunderstood you said that aliveness is death.
Yeah. So I suppose it can get a bit confusing with dead and a death, because what I was saying is for the individual, this is sort of dead in that it's flat.
Yeah.
But when I say that this aliveness is death, in that there's no one in it. There's no one in it. Okay. So for it to be fully alive, it has to be death. In terms of there's no individual. Yeah, yeah. Exactly, yeah. Because if there's someone who feels they're in it, it's like, as just entertain concepts, 80% aliveness, 20% me. So it's sort of constantly filtering aliveness and like filtering it and killing it. But then there's just 100% aliveness, which is also 100% death, because there's no one in it experiencing it. Yeah, I'm glad.
It's alive and dead at the same time.
Yeah, this is, well, like everything in the message, it's a paradox. So it's aliveness and it's death. It's empty and it's full. It's the same thing. Empty, death, aliveness, full. It's the same thing. Nothing, everything. So that paradox just catches the place where the individual can't. No one can know that. You can't understand that sort of paradox. Well, I don't know. Well, no, because the body still apparently dies, and this all goes through the same so-called process. Just no one doing it. There's no one. But in a way, as I said at the start, everything's so much more intimate and so much more alive that actually these sorts of things are much, perhaps, more emotional.
Death is alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in a funny way, I think people would think, oh, well, if someone dies, I don't care because there's no one. But that's still a position. And in a funny way, actually, there being no one who dies and no one who lives who knows that they die, there's a boundless emotion and boundless connection with that so-called person. Yeah. It does, I don't know. I don't know why. No one knows why. Just by being, it is a mystery, but by being so alive, it seems to be so much more intimate and close, and everything is so much more real in a funny way. Mm. Oh yeah. Mm. And it's just, this overwhelms the person. There's no room for me in unconditional love. It's too alive. Me can't survive this sort of intensity. It's far too full on for the person.
I don't fully understand the sense of that. Nobody wants it.
Mm.
I do. See what I mean? And it's that I can't understand why sort of the speakers nobody wants it.
Mm. Well, the thing is, you don't really. You don't really. That's the thing. So you do and you don't. Again, it's a paradox. It's what the individual most longs for, but it's actually what they most fear at the same time.
And exactly. I don't fear that.
Well, actually, the person doesn't know what that is, so it doesn't even know what it is fearing or not fearing. That's the thing, because I when I was still alive in this way, I thought I really wanted it. I thought I wanted the absence of me. But, yeah, of course. Yeah. And every so-called me does. It does and it doesn't. But the thing is, I remember when I was in Devon, because I went away to Devon and was on my own for a month, and this started to unfold. And I remember when I'd had some glimpses and stuff, but this was a very strong, there was just this collapse. And it was the first time where there was sort of just looking at the hands and there was just no one. The body wasn't even owned anymore. There was just no one. And energetically, that was terrifying. Yeah, I mean, maybe that was just what seemed to happen here. Different for some other bodies, it's not so dramatic. But there was real fear. It wasn't that it sort of lasted for ages. It was just in that so-called moment, there was just real devastating terror, because there was just looking at the chair and there's just nothing. And it's just full on sort of aliveness, and this just sort of indescribable, energetic, full on breathing aliveness. And that was terrifying when they still felt that there was something in the body kind of confronting that void, in a sense. So I thought I wanted it up until that point, and then there was something that was like still wanting it, but also like, fuck, this is actually about me dying. And then it wasn't so sort of appealing.
So the idea, the concept of saying that I'd like
exactly, is very different to the energetic, boom, you're not there. There's no one there.
It's impossible to comprehend death.
It is, yeah.
I just can't even comprehend what that is or what it could be.
Well, because death is not a comprehension, it's a reality. It's how it actually is. It's not an idea. And that's the same thing. I think the individual would like to, in the concept, would like there to be no me, because I would have a better life, really. I would have a better life. Exactly, yeah. It always feels as if there would be an opportunity to somehow, exactly, get around this. I always felt that, 100%. I always felt I could beat the system somehow, like fully know me, but still experiencing it. Yeah. But it's impossible. It's impossible. Yeah, so there can just seem to be a resonance with what's being said, and conceptually there can be an understanding of it, but really none of that matters, because that's just concepts and ideas. And and we do talk about concepts here, really, because we can never touch this. But really, when there's a real energetically, this just falls away, there's no concepts anymore. So there's no stories running about, oh, it's so much better that there's no one, or there's not even a story running here about it's so alive, because there's just no story anymore. It is just alive. Exactly. There's no story about non-duality or no me or any of that.
So the meetings are pointless, and at the same time, we come to them because, for me, there's a sense that.
Yeah, but really what the person brings to the meetings is probably that would be amazing for me. So it is amazing, but not for anyone. So it has a very different taste, because it's not a personal amazement. It's an impersonal, just boundless amazement at nothing. But at the same time, there can be just a in loveness with this message and what's being suggested. That could just be what we say is just a resonance with what seems to be suggested. Yeah. And the person never knows what that is. I never knew what that was. Looking back, I think I thought I did. Thought I knew what was being said. But actually, and having a few glimpses, there's sort of like a memory of that almost, and a remembering in that way. But still, until the very so-called end, I didn't know what this was.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, because I haven't had glimpses of it. Pure unconditional love. That, in that glimpse, that's what was there. So I don't think I thought, well, I'm just trying to work around this.
Well, no, because in the glimpse, it's clear that there's no chance of that. No. There's just no one there. It just falls away. But the thing is, even though in the glimpse there's no one there, it seems that if something survives that, it really turns the glimpse into something else that it wasn't. It projects onto the glimpse. It makes a story out of the glimpse. The story being that it was a glimpse, even, when in fact it's the other way around. But for me, when this totally collapsed, it's not for the person. I think the person kind of feels like the end will be a permanent glimpse, almost. It will be like what the glimpse was like. But the thing was, the glimpse wasn't like anything, because in the glimpse there was nothing. So it's the end of glimpses in that way. There's no, yeah. Which here was a relief. Well, no, here it was a relief, because this was like chasing glimpses. Like it would have glimpses and then it would need to get them back. So sort of just be in a lot of sort of distress, trying to. Oh gosh, yeah. I couldn't listen to this message for like 8 months. It was just triggered this sort of need to get to what they were saying. It was very sort of intense seeking in that way. But at the same time, all along, there was always just a sense that would never work, because they weren't talking about anything. There was always a taste of home in that, even. Love, yeah. Which is this. It's this. It's not hiding. It's not hiding. That's the wonderful thing, and this came up on my Zoom meeting the other day, that what is most deeply longed for is this. I mean, I think that's wonderful. Well, because it's not waiting. Well, it's free. It's free. Yeah, it doesn't sell well because there's no anticipation, there's no hope, there's no waiting. It's already this.
No anticipation. Did you see the Bellingham goal?
I heard about the celebration. Was
But
that
the goal itself?
No, I didn't actually see it.
So I imagine that Bellingham goal, he wasn't there when he did that.
He probably hopes he wasn't there when he did the celebration, so he doesn't get in trouble.
But it was
didn't
like,
even notice the celebration in real time.
Oh, really?
Sorry?
I didn't even notice anything wrong with the celebration in real time.
I didn't watch it live, so.
Apparently he's supposed to have done some
gesture.
thing which, something like that, yeah. But the actual goal was sort of like
Ronaldo goal.
What?
Like Ronaldo.
Very special. I was just saying that in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying before, I think that things like sport and art and those sorts of things, there seemed to just be such a natural talent there that this sense of individuality almost just doesn't have an opportunity to be there in those sorts of such alive, intense moments.
That sounds like a flow state. Some people seem to say it's getting a flow state.
Yeah, and in a way it is a flow, but it's not a state. Okay. I know.
It's not a state,
that's the thing. For the person, people do, and this has come up on my meetings before, and people have said about the flow, and it gets them very confusing because I think for the person it makes it sound as if it is a state, because for the person I think everyone's had experiences of flow where it's been happening, but really when there's just flow, there's just flow. There's no one in it. Exactly. So it's not, to me, when I use the word flow, it's referring to this almost. It's not a state. So really, I think with a lot of elite athletes, this flow does just seem to happen when there's just no one there. Because the thing is, for the individual, the person thinks that me is the solid thing and that it's like me is falling away when he scores that goal or whatever. But actually, the amazing thing is that me works so hard for the glimpses and stuff, but me is constantly, it's never actually there, but it's constantly this so-called dance of feeling like I am there and then not there. But when you're not there, there's no one to notice you're not there. But there can sort of be this like a kind of coming back and like I wasn't there sort of thing for the last whatever just happened. So throughout the day, throughout this whole conversation, there's a dance, it seems, with this energy of feeling like there is something there, and then it's constantly sort of this expansion, that sort of thing. But in the end, it's just that never actually happens. That never happens. Oh yeah.
You use the word illusion.
It's an illusion, but it's an illusion that never happens. So, because the thing is, the person gets caught up on illusion as it then being an illusion that needs to fall away or be seen through. But actually, the illusion is that there is an illusion. So, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. There is nothing to say to it because.
I remember when we used to do cross-country running at school, it was about 7 miles. But the last mile, I would just be in this flow, actually. It was very similar. Well, I can't say similar. I wasn't there, really.
Oh, no, yeah.
It was just effortless.
Yeah, totally effortless. It's just happening. Yeah.
It's just happening.
And it's not like...
And you couldn't create it.
Oh, no. It's uncreated.
It just happened.
Exactly. It's totally spontaneous. I think that's one of the things I've heard Jim say, is that with the glimpses and with those sorts of things, it's just very clear that it's totally uncaused. Nothing caused that to happen. It just, something spontaneously dropped, and it never actually dropped, but there just suddenly was, I didn't do anything to cause that glimpse. And that can be both the freeing, but also the frustrating thing, because so-called glimpses or the apparent death is totally uncaused. So some people some
So
people
you can't cause it.
exactly. So some of the speakers say some people say it's a bit of a lottery in that way. And of course, nothing ever actually happens. But I think the point that's being made is that nothing can cause it. Nothing can cause it. Nothing that is done will bring about this apparent collapse, because the apparent collapse is the recognition that nothing can be done.
It can happen quite a lot.
Oh yeah, well throughout the day there's a constant dance, and it won't be registered. Like some people seem to have these bigger sort of energetic shifts where there's like a real boom, there's no one, and then something seems to come back, and they could last. I mean, obviously they're timeless, but apparently in the story they could last days for some people. Others it might just be a glimpse like that. Obviously neither of them actually happen, but throughout the whole day there's this, me is such a permeable illusion in that way that it's constantly sort of coming and going throughout the whole day, really. And it just turns out it's never actually coming.
And sometimes just listening to nothing there. But Tim Kiss was saying, I hadn't really thought about it before, that of course everybody else, you think you're is a me, but nobody else is a me. Nobody else is a me.
Yeah.
So it was quite, I just sort of got it when you were saying, like, you two, you're not me.
Well, thanks.
I'm going to watch football together.
Yeah.
And it's all about, I always started resonating.
Yeah, but in that also though, when you feel like a me, you also do see other me's. That's the ironic thing though anyway. So even in seeing a no me, it's actually seeing a thing that is a no me.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not even that this sees no me. It's just that there's nothing that's seeing or being seen. So it's, if there would have to be a position of, oh, I can see that there's no one there, but there's just no one. Yeah. I think me turns no me into another thing. It makes it
a thing. Other you two are no me. That makes it into a thing.
Basically saying there's a me there, that there's a no me there. It's still a thing. But in the end, this blows up all of that.
Difference between attention and awareness. The same things.
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know, in that sense that it's just a word and it's totally meaningless. But I think I would say yes, in the sense that me feels it can put its attention on something, which is the same as saying me feels it can be aware of something. At the end of the day, it's just still the two-ness, so that there's me paying attention of something or me being aware of something.
Pretty much all meditation practices can be distilled into awareness
or attention.
Yeah. They're always getting you to do something with your attention. Like you said,
pay attention.
Put your attention on the body. Put your attention on the breath. You need to be trying to focus. I don't know what the result is supposed to be, but it just seems to be moving the attention onto things. Be a point within you that you can actually direct. What is that?
That's the dream. That is the dream, that there is that thing that can shine a light on other things.
Be aware and know it.
Exactly.
So the knowing comes from the attention.
Knowing is the same as attention and awareness, really, in that model, which is the same as me. They're all the same dreamt thing, that there is something separate behind the eyes or behind thoughts.
Seems to be something behind attention.
Yeah, and this then goes into the awareness thing with sort of, then there's paying attention, but you can then become the awareness that is aware of awareness.
Yeah, because it seems sort of like being aware of being aware.
Exactly. And this whole teaching of non-duality is towards that sort of becoming aware that you are aware.
I don't know how
I mean, I never got into that. I was never blessed with that sort of state,
well,
but it's just a dream. It's still duality, even though it's branded non-duality. It's pure duality, and this awareness is an illusion. It's a dream. The body seems to have apparent awareness of, or not of. That's the thing. It just seems to have apparent awareness.
Which is a bodily function to exist in existence.
Yeah, awareness is a function. It's just like an arm or a leg, or whatever, or the apparent brain or whatever.
It isn't a separate thing inside.
No, that is aware of.
And can hold things and so on. That is what we would call consciousness then.
Same
So
thing.
I hold this in my consciousness. Aspect of that.
Yeah, and it's a dream. It's a whole dream reality.
And then it seems the states of consciousness are just awareness in different things happening.
Yeah.
In experience.
Exactly. Yeah. There seem to be different levels, different sort of states, different experiences that can all kind of happen within that model. But yeah, at the end of the day, all of it is a dream. It's all dreamt.
That brings a lot of things kind of tumbling down.
Oh yeah, everything.
All the
for the individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and levels of consciousness and states. And this is just puts it all into an aspect of me and separation.
Because really, awareness is me. The ability to be aware is the same thing as being aware that I am sat here right now. That's actually the so-called problem for the person. That's the funny thing. In spirituality, awareness is sort of glorified as this goal or this tool that can be used to get to a goal or to peace or whatever, or to realization. But really, the so-called awareness of sitting here right now is what seems to cause the tension for the person. Because for the person, there seems to be an itchiness with being aware that I am here. It seems to be uncomfortable somehow. And that is what seems to collapse. There's just no awareness of sitting here. Exactly. Just sitting. Yeah. 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 With absolutely no knowledge, awareness, or experience of it happening.
No awareness, no knowing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same thing, really, saying the same thing. But there's no knowledge and no awareness.
They're just coming out.
Here we go.
You want to watch?
Shall we wrap it up? Are you happy to?
Yeah, because I remember reading this book actually, and it's called The Transcending of Attention. So, which didn't make sense to me. We talked about it.
None of it makes any sense because there is no actual attention.
No.
So all of those books and teachings are all based on a dream. It's not a problem, but it's not wrong in that way. But it's based on an illusion that I can be aware and that I can pay attention. No one can. There's nothing to transcend attention. Attention just collapses.
I can't imagine not that.
No, you can't, because the person will be trying to use attention to imagine it.
Yeah.
So it's trying to beat the game, and it never can because it's trying to use the dream to get out of the dream. Are you happy to end there?
I'm very happy.
Happy to watch the football. What can I say? Yeah. Apparently.
Don't tease me.
Well, you know me.
Can you close that door, please, while you're there?
Yeah.
Where do you want to sit now?
Anywhere.